Maya Richardson stands frozen at the airport check-in counter, her cell phone screen displaying the cancellation of $950 million in bookings. The smirking agent who had mocked her Jamaican accent minutes ago now receives frantic calls from management. Nobody's laughing anymore. Before we dive into this incredible story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If you've ever experienced discrimination while traveling, this story will resonate with you. Hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated with more powerful stories of justice and transformation. Now let's uncover how one woman's dignity changed an entire industry overnight. The gleaming floors of Atlanta International Airport reflected the morning sunlight as Maya Richardson strode confidently toward the premium check-in counter, her assistant Kevin Walker keeping pace beside her. At 38, Maya carried herself with the poise of someone who had built something significant from nothing. Her tailored navy blazer and crisp white blouse conveyed the success she had achieved as founder and CEO of Horizon Cultural Tours, a company now valued at $950 million. "Remember, we need to be at the Westfield Hotel by 3 for preliminary discussions," Maya reminded Kevin, her slight Jamaican accent adding a melodic quality to her words. "The contract signing tomorrow could change everything for us." Kevin nodded, adjusting his glasses. "All the documents are prepared. William Armstrong confirmed he'll join remotely for the final review tonight." Maya had revolutionized the travel industry with her vision for Horizon Cultural Tours, creating luxury cultural experiences specifically designed for Black professionals and corporations seeking authentic diversity experiences. What had started as a small operation coordinating trips to Jamaica had expanded into a global enterprise connecting travelers with cultural experiences across 6 continents. As they approached the airline's premium check-in area, Maya noticed the white agent behind the counter glance up at her, then return to his computer screen without acknowledgement, despite no other customers waiting in line. The name badge on his chest read, Bradley Cooper. "Good morning," Maya said pleasantly, sliding her passport and confirmation details across the counter. "I have a first-class reservation to Chicago." Bradley barely looked at her documents before his eyes flickered up to her face with subtle disdain. "Name?" he asked flatly, though her passport lay open before him. "Maya Richardson," she replied, maintaining her professional demeanor despite his dismissive tone. When she continued explaining her seating preference, Bradley's expression changed. His lips curled into a smirk as she spoke, his attention suddenly more focused on her accent than her words. "I'm sorry," he interrupted with exaggerated politeness. "Could you repeat that? I'm having trouble understanding your unique way of speaking." His emphasis made it clear this wasn't about clarity. Maya repeated herself clearly, aware that her accent was mild after decades in America. Bradley turned to a colleague nearby, making an exaggerated imitation of Maya's accent, elongating vowels in a way she hadn't. Both employees laughed openly. "We get all kinds here," Bradley said loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. A couple of travelers in line chuckled, while others looked uncomfortable at the display. Maya felt a familiar burn of humiliation rise in her chest but maintained her composure, discreetly pressing the record button on her phone sitting on the counter. "I'll also need to confirm arrangements for my group," Maya added calmly. Bradley rolled his eyes. "Sure you are, honey," he said with naked skepticism. "And how big is this so-called group of yours?" "We've booked 120 seats through your corporate sales department over the next 2 weeks, Maya stated factually. "Horizon Cultural Tours is partnering with your airline on several upcoming excursions." Bradley made a show of typing something into his computer, though his performative gesture suggested he wasn't actually checking anything. "Not seeing any of that in the system," he said with false concern. "Maybe there was a miscommunication? Happens all the time with certain customers." Maya noticed a white businessman approach another counter, where the agent immediately smiled and processed his ticket efficiently. The contrast was striking. Kevin stepped forward. "Excuse me, but Ms. Richardson is the CEO of..." Maya subtly placed a hand on Kevin's arm, signaling him to wait. She had faced these situations before and knew exactly how she wanted to handle. "Perhaps you could try searching under the corporate booking ID," Maya suggested professionally, providing the reference number. Bradley sighed dramatically. "You people always think your reservations are so special," he muttered, just loud enough for Maya to hear. "Always exaggerating your importance." After deliberately prolonged typing, Bradley finally printed a boarding pass and slid it across the counter without making eye contact. "There you go. Have a nice flight," he said with transparently false cheerfulness. Maya glanced at the boarding pass and noticed immediately that despite her first-class reservation, she had been assigned a middle seat in economy. "There seems to be a mistake with my seat assignment," she pointed out calmly. Bradley shrugged. "System shows that's what was booked. If you want to complain, customer service is all the way down on the lower level." He turned away dismissively, making it clear their interaction was over. Maya stood perfectly still for a moment, taking a deep breath. Rather than argue further with Bradley, she walked to another counter where an agent quickly verified that yes, Maya's reservation was indeed for first class, and corrected the error with an apology. As Maya and Kevin walked toward security, Kevin's face showed his outrage. "Maya, we should file a complaint immediately. That was completely unacceptable." Maya's expression remained measured. "Let's get to Chicago first," she said thoughtfully. "I have some calls to make on the plane." The first-class cabin hummed with quiet conversation as Maya settled into her seat, still visibly shaken despite her external composure. As the plane prepared for takeoff, she stared out the window at the Atlanta skyline, her mind racing with conflicting emotions of anger, humiliation, and calculation. The episode at the check-in counter had transported her back to her childhood in Kingston, Jamaica. Maya could suddenly hear her mother's voice. "You must be twice as good to get half as far, my love." It was a lesson that followed 12-year-old Maya when her family immigrated to America, seeking better educational opportunities and a new start. She remembered her first experiences in American schools, where classmates mocked her accent until she painstakingly trained herself to soften it. How teachers expressed surprise at her academic excellence, as though her Jamaican background suggested she should be struggling. The memory of her brilliant father, Dr. Richardson, a renowned economist, being asked if he was part of the hotel cleaning staff while attending an academic conference in New York, still made her stomach tighten. The irony wasn't lost on Maya that after decades of facing discrimination as a traveler, she had built a 9-figure business in the very industry that had often made her feel unwelcome. Horizon Cultural Tours had emerged from her determination to create safe, dignified travel experiences for Black professionals who too often encountered the exact treatment she had received today. As the seatbelt sign turned off, Maya pulled out her laptop and phone. "I need to convene an emergency meeting with the executive team," she told Kevin quietly. "The situation has changed." Within minutes, Maya's screen displayed the faces of her leadership team, all connecting remotely from different locations. "I apologize for the last-minute meeting," Maya began, her voice steady despite the turbulence of her emotions. "Something occurred at the airport that requires immediate strategic discussion." Maya's executive team represented the diversity and excellence she had deliberately cultivated at Horizon. Gabrielle Washington, her chief operations officer, had previously managed logistics for a Fortune 100 company. Marcus Taylor, chief marketing officer, had built award-winning campaigns for global brands before joining Horizon. Financial director Aisha Johnson had worked at Goldman Sachs for 15 years. Legal counsel James Peterson had been a partner at one of Atlanta's most prestigious law firms. Maya recounted the incident with Bradley in precise detail, her team's expressions darkening as she described the mockery and dismissive treatment. "This is outrageous, but unfortunately not surprising," Gabrielle commented when Maya finished. "Should we file a formal complaint with the airline? We have significant leverage with the pending contract." "I'm thinking beyond a complaint," Maya replied, her voice taking on a new resolve. "As you know, we're scheduled to sign an unprecedented partnership agreement with this airline's parent company tomorrow. The $950 million contract would make us their exclusive travel partner for cultural tourism over the next 5 years. The magnitude of what Maya was suggesting rippled through the virtual meeting as understanding dawned on their faces. "Maya, are you considering pulling out of the deal?" James asked carefully. "That's a major decision with significant financial implications for both parties." I'm considering all options, Maya responded. Our partnership would represent the single largest Black-owned travel consortium agreement in North American aviation history. But I need to determine if this airline truly values our business or merely our money. Maya turned to Kevin, who was already pulling up alternative proposals on his tablet. Kevin, please contact our second and third choice carriers immediately. I want to understand our contingency options by the time we land. Marcus leaned forward on camera. The messaging around any decision will be critical. This isn't just about one rude employee. It's about the culture that permits such behavior. Exactly, Maya agreed. William Armstrong is giving me complete authority on this decision. Armstrong was the CEO of Global Experiences International, Maya's corporate partner on the deal whose investment had helped push the contract value to nearly $1 billion. The discussion continued as the plane cruised at 35,000 feet. Maya directed her team to prepare detailed contingency plans while maintaining radio silence about their deliberations. No one outside their inner circle should know that the landmark deal might be in jeopardy. Maya recalled a similar crossroads years earlier, when a hotel chain had dismissed Horizon as too niche for a major partnership. She had walked away, signing instead with their competitor who valued diversity. Within 2 years, Horizon's partner had captured a significant market share specifically because of their inclusive approach, while the dismissive chain had lost millions in potential revenue. This is bigger than one check-in agent or even one airline, Maya told her team as their meeting concluded. This is about changing practices across an entire industry that has historically marginalized travelers of color. Sometimes meaningful. Change requires difficult decisions. After ending the call, Maya sat quietly, still uncertain if she was overreacting. She dialed another number. Her longtime mentor, Dr. Elaine Washington, former CEO of a major corporation and one of the first Black women to break into the aviation industry's executive ranks. You're not overreacting, Dr. Washington assured her after hearing the story. Trust your instincts, Maya. You've built Horizon precisely because these experiences are common and unacceptable. Your business decisions have always aligned with your values. That's why you've succeeded where others failed. As the plane began its descent into Chicago, Maya had reached her decision. This incident wouldn't be brushed aside with an apology and a voucher. The industry needed to recognize that diversity wasn't just a marketing buzzword, but a fundamental business imperative. Whatever happened next, Maya knew it would be a defining moment for both Horizon and the airline industry. The Westfield Chicago Hotel exuded luxury from every polished marble surface and crystal chandelier. Maya strode through the grand lobby toward the executive meeting rooms, her mind clear and focused despite the turbulence of the day. Kevin walked beside her, carrying the contract portfolio they had expected to be signing tomorrow. Outside the Lakeshore conference room, airline CEO Thomas Whitfield stood chatting with his executive team. At 59, Whitfield had a commanding presence with his silver hair and tailored suit that spoke of corporate power and privilege. He broke into a broad smile upon seeing Maya approach. "Maya Richardson, the woman of the hour," he exclaimed, extending his hand warmly. "We're thrilled to finally get this historic partnership underway." Maya shook his hand professionally, noting the stark demographic makeup of his team: 6 white men and 1 white woman, all in their 50s, a striking contrast to the diverse travelers their airline served. "Thomas, thank you for making time for this preliminary meeting," Maya replied evenly. "Before we discuss tomorrow's contract signing, there's an important matter we need to address." Thomas guided her into the wood-paneled conference room with its sweeping views of Lake Michigan. Of course. Anything for our most important new partner. Can I offer you a drink? Coffee? Water?" As everyone settled around the gleaming table, Maya declined refreshments and instead recounted her experience at their Atlanta airport terminal that morning. Her voice remained measured as she described Bradley's mockery of her accent, his dismissive treatment, and the open discrimination she had faced. The airline executives exchanged uncomfortable glances as Maya spoke. When she finished, Thomas leaned forward with practiced concern on his face. "Maya, I'm deeply sorry you had that experience. That's not what our airline stands for," he said, with a frown that seemed more annoyed than sympathetic. Rest assured, we'll look into this isolated incident immediately. Isolated incident? Maya repeated with raised eyebrows. These things occasionally happen in customer service, chimed in Janet Preston, the airline's vice president of customer experience. One bad employee doesn't reflect our company values. We have extensive diversity training. Thomas nodded energetically. Absolutely. We can offer you complimentary upgrades for your next several flights and 50,000 bonus miles as compensation for this unfortunate experience. Maya sat perfectly still, her expression revealing nothing as she processed their response. Their immediate pivot to damage control rather than genuine concern told her everything she needed to know about the corporate culture. I don't want upgrades or miles, Thomas, she said calmly. I'm concerned about the culture that allows employees to openly mock customers based on their accent or race without fear of consequences. We take these matters very seriously, Thomas assured her quickly. We'll identify this employee and handle it internally. Maya reached for her phone and placed it on the table. I recorded the interaction, she said, pressing play. The executives listened with growing discomfort as Bradley's voice filled the room, his mockery and dismissive tone unmistakable. More damaging was the clear sound of other airline staff joining in the laughter and a supervisor walking by without intervention. This isn't about one employee, Maya continued as the recording ended. This is about a culture that permits such behavior. After this occurred, I spoke with several of your flight attendants who confirmed this is not uncommon at your airline. The atmosphere in the room had shifted dramatically. Thomas's affable demeanor hardened into crisis management mode. Maya, we can discuss adding specific language about cultural sensitivity to our partnership agreement, he offered. Perhaps Horizon could even conduct some training sessions for our customer-facing staff. The suggestion that her company should fix their discrimination problem while giving them nearly $1 billion in business made Maya's decision crystallize completely. When I was 12 years old, she said quietly, I watched my father, a distinguished economics professor with a PhD from Oxford, being asked to fetch luggage at an airport because the staff assumed a black man in a suit must be a porter rather than a first-class passenger. 26 years later, I'm running a $950 million company and still facing the same treatment at your airline. Thomas ran a hand through his silver hair, his frustration becoming visible. What exactly are you looking for? Here, Maya, we can fire this Bradley person immediately if that's what you want. Firing one person solves nothing, Maya replied. I'm looking for acknowledgement that this reflects a systemic issue requiring systemic solutions. She stood up, gathering her materials. I'd like to meet with your entire executive leadership team tomorrow morning at 9, instead of proceeding with the contract signing as planned. Maya, surely we can resolve this without delaying, Thomas began. 9 o'clock tomorrow, Thomas. My team will be evaluating our options until then. As Maya turned to leave, the airline executives exchanged alarmed glances, suddenly understanding that their $950 million deal might actually be in jeopardy. We'll be there, Thomas conceded, his tone making it clear he still expected the contract signing to proceed after a token discussion. As Maya and Kevin exited the hotel, her phone buzzed with incoming messages. Through Horizon's customer feedback channels, travelers were already sharing similar experiences of discrimination with this same airline. The incident wasn't isolated after all. It was merely the visible symptom of a much deeper problem. Maya spent the evening in her hotel suite, reviewing competing offers from other airlines and crafting a comprehensive proposal for systemic change. If Thomas and his team wanted Horizon's business, they would need to commit to transformation, not just damage control. What would you do if you were in Maya's position? Would you walk away from a $950 million deal on principle, or try to work within the system to create change? Comment number 1 if you believe Maya should stand firm and demand real transformation, or number 2 if you think she should secure the deal first and push for changes from within. Don't forget to like and subscribe to catch the next part of this incredible story. How do you think the airline executives will respond to Maya's ultimatum? Let's find out what happens next. Moonlight spilled across Maya's hotel suite as she pushed aside the heavy curtains, staring out at Chicago's glittering skyline. Sleep wasn't an option tonight. The confrontation with Thomas Whitfield and his executive team had only strengthened her resolve, but she needed more than righteous indignation to drive meaningful change. She needed irrefutable evidence. Her laptop screen illuminated her determined face as she connected to an emergency video call with her expanded team. Beyond her executive staff, she had activated Horizon's research division, legal consultants, and data analytics specialists for an overnight investigation into the airline's practices. "We need comprehensive information before tomorrow's meeting," Maya instructed the assembled digital faces. "Dig into everything: customer complaints, employment practices, social media sentiment, former employee experiences. Leave no stone unturned." Marcus Taylor, her CMO, appeared first with preliminary findings. "We've already identified a disturbing pattern. Using public records and social media analysis, we've documented 73 similar complaints against this airline over the past year involving alleged discrimination. 48 specifically mentioned staff at the same Atlanta terminal where you had your experience." Gabrielle shared her screen, displaying a color-coded map. "The complaints aren't isolated to Atlanta either. We're seeing clusters at their Chicago, Dallas, and Phoenix hubs. The airline's own customer satisfaction data, which we access through public financial disclosures, shows minority travelers consistently report worse experiences than white travelers. But this disparity isn't addressed in any of their annual reports or improvement initiatives." Maya nodded grimly. "What about Bradley Cooper specifically?" James Peterson, her legal counsel, unmuted himself. "That's where it gets even more troubling. We've connected with 3 former customer service representatives who worked with Bradley. They confirm he has a history of similar behavior spanning at least 5 years, with multiple complaints filed through internal channels. Not only was he not disciplined, but he received 2 promotions during this period." "How is that possible?" Maya asked, her brow furrowing. "According to our sources, complaints about discriminatory behavior are routinely classified as customer misunderstandings and rarely reach higher management," James explained. "There's an unofficial practice of dismissing certain types of complaints, particularly those from travelers of color." As the night progressed, Maya's team uncovered layer after layer of troubling information. Former Black employees shared stories of a toxic culture where speaking up against discrimination resulted in being labeled not a team player. Internal promotion data revealed stark disparities in advancement opportunities. Training materials obtained from a former HR employee showed diversity issues relegated to a brief, optional online module that most employees clicked through without engaging. Meanwhile, Maya's phone buzzed with notifications. Unbeknownst to her, several passengers who had witnessed the incident at the Atlanta airport had posted about it on social media. One video clip had already garnered over 50,000 views, with the hashtag #SorryFlyingWhileBlack gaining traction. The airline's PR team had made 3 increasingly urgent attempts to contact her, each message offering more substantial concessions while avoiding any admission of systemic issues. Around 2 a.m., Maya received a text from Dr. Washington. "Check your email. Sent you something important." The email contained links to 5 similar incidents involving the same airline over the past year, including 2 that had received minimal media coverage before quickly disappearing from the news cycle. Dr. Washington had also connected Maya with Jasmine Taylor, a prominent civil rights attorney who specialized in corporate discrimination cases. "This isn't just about your experience or even your business relationship," Jasmine told Maya during a brief midnight consultation. "The pattern here suggests potential grounds for a class action lawsuit. But more importantly, you have a unique leverage point that most affected travelers never get. Economic power the airline can't ignore." By 3 a.m., Maya was reviewing proposals from 3 competing airlines who had somehow gotten wind of the potential collapse deal. Each one not only matched the financial terms, but included specific commitments to diversity initiatives and anti-discrimination policies. "They're watching to see how this plays out," Aisha commented. "The industry knows this could be a watershed moment." In the pre-dawn hours, Maya finalized her comprehensive proposal for the airline: mandatory diversity training with measurable outcomes, reformed employment practices with accountability for discriminatory behavior, executive team diversity goals with timetables, revised customer service protocols specifically addressing treatment of minority travelers, and quarterly public reporting on progress. At 6 a.m., she received a call from William Armstrong, her corporate partner whose investment had helped make the deal so substantial. "I've been briefed on the situation," he said, his voice grave. "The board is getting nervous about potential delays." Maya braced herself for pressure to compromise, but Armstrong surprised her. "I want you to know that I fully support whatever decision you make," he continued. "This partnership was built on shared values, not just financial outcomes. If this airline doesn't align with those values, we'll find partners who do." As sunrise bathed Chicago in golden light, Maya prepared for the 9 a.m. meeting, armed with thorough research and a transformative proposal. She remained uncertain whether the airline executives would recognize the opportunity to lead industry change or cling to the status quo and lose the deal. Either way, Maya was prepared to stand firm on her principles, regardless of the financial implications. The questions haunting her now were not about whether she was overreacting, but about how deep the resistance might run and whether genuine transformation was even possible within an organization so comfortable with its current culture. The conference room at the Westfield Chicago Hotel buzzed with tense energy as airline executives filtered in for the 9 a.m. meeting. Maya sat calmly at the head of the table, flanked by her diverse team of professionals. The contrast couldn't have been more striking. Horizon's leadership reflected the multicultural world they served, while the airline's representatives remained a homogeneous group of predominantly older white men. Thomas Whitfield entered last, accompanied by an unfamiliar black woman he quickly introduced as Dr. Clarissa Johnson. "Our newly retained diversity consultant," he explained with a transparent attempt at showcasing responsiveness. The hasty, overnight hire wasn't lost on Maya. Thomas cleared his throat, shuffling papers before him. "Before we begin, Maya, I want to express our sincerest apologies for your experience yesterday." He read from a clearly prepared statement about the airline's commitment to inclusive customer service and respectful treatment of all passengers. "We've placed Bradley Cooper on administrative leave pending investigation," he concluded. "And, as you can see, we've already engaged Dr. Johnson to help us review our practices." Dr. Johnson smiled uncomfortably, her presence so obviously last minute that she still carried a visitor's badge. Maya thanked Thomas for his apology, but didn't return his smile. "I appreciate those initial steps, but our discussion today needs to go much deeper than one employee or a hastily arranged consultation." She opened her laptop and connected it to the room's display system. "Over the past 12 hours, my team has conducted a thorough investigation into your airline's history regarding these issues." The room darkened as Maya's presentation appeared, on screen. "What happened to me yesterday was not an isolated incident but indicative of systemic problems throughout your organization." For the next 30 minutes, Maya methodically presented her team's findings. Maps displayed complaint clusters across multiple hubs. Charts showed disparities in customer satisfaction scores broken down by demographic data. Testimony from former employees revealed a culture where discrimination was routinely minimized or ignored. "This former flight attendant worked for your airline for 7 years, Maya said, indicating a professional-looking black woman on screen. She filed 17 internal reports about discriminatory treatment of passengers before eventually resigning after being passed over for promotion. 3 times while watching less experienced white colleagues advance." The airline executives shifted uncomfortably as Maya continued through case after documented case. "Your own HR records, which are partially visible through public court filings from previous discrimination lawsuits, show that complaints from minority customers are 57% more likely to be dismissed without action than those from white customers." Maya switched to employment statistics. "Your customer-facing staff is relatively diverse, but this diversity disappears entirely at management level. Only 3% of your regional managers are people of color, despite serving markets that are often majority-minority." Thomas interrupted, his face flushed. "Maya, while we acknowledge there's always room for improvement, some of these statistics can be interpreted different ways. The airline industry has unique challenges." "I'm very familiar with the airline industry's challenges," Maya replied. "Evenly. I've built a $950 million business within it, But discrimination isn't a challenge, it's a failure of leadership and culture. Maya switched to social media metrics. Since yesterday, the hashtag #FlyingWhileBlack has collected over 20,000 posts specifically mentioning your airline. These aren't anomalies. They represent travelers sharing nearly identical experiences to mine. The presentation concluded with video testimonials from travelers who had faced similar treatment, their stories forming an undeniable pattern. So now, Maya said, turning on the lights, we need to discuss whether our companies can actually partner, because Horizon won't align its brand with an organization that permits systemic discrimination. Thomas attempted to regain control of the meeting. We recognize these concerns, and we're prepared to implement a 6-month diversity review with quarterly milestones. That's insufficient, Maya interrupted. She distributed copies of her comprehensive proposal to everyone present. This document outlines the minimum changes necessary for our partnership to proceed. The airline executives paged through the detailed requirements with increasing alarm. The chief financial officer, Richard Blackwell, looked up with visible anger. These demands are financially unreasonable, he objected. Mandatory company-wide training programs alone would cost millions, not to mention the executive recruitment changes and quarterly audits. Maya remained unmoved. The question isn't whether you can afford to make these changes, it's whether you can afford not to. The room erupted into heated debate. Some executives argued that Maya's requests exceeded industry standards, while others suggested phased implementation over several years. Thomas attempted to negotiate, offering to accept certain elements while modifying others. This isn't a negotiation, Maya clarified. These are the conditions under which Horizon will do business with your airline. We have alternative offers from your competitors who are ready to meet these same terms. Richard Blackwell scoffed. You're leveraging one employee's poor behavior to force unnecessary corporate changes. This is extortion, not partnership. The room fell silent at his words. Maya stood slowly, gathering her materials. That comment perfectly illustrates the problem, she said quietly. You still see discrimination as an individual behavior rather than a systemic issue enabled by your corporate culture, and you view addressing it as an unnecessary burden rather than a moral and business imperative. She nodded to her team, who began packing up. My team and I are leaving now. You have until 5 p.m. today to accept our proposal in its entirety, or we'll be moving forward with one of your competitors. You can't just walk away from a deal of this magnitude, Thomas protested, his confident facade cracking. Let's be reasonable here. Demanding dignified treatment for all customers is the most reasonable position possible, Maya replied. The proposal is on the table. 5 p.m., Thomas. As Maya and her team exited, leaving the airline executives in disarray, she felt a strange calm. The decision was now in their hands, but either way, Maya knew she had already changed the conversation around discrimination in the travel industry. Whether this specific airline would be part of that change remained to be seen. The midday sun blazed through the windows of Maya's temporary office at Horizon's Chicago satellite location. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing since leaving the morning meeting. News of the potentially collapsed deal had spread through business circles with remarkable speed. Our stock monitoring alert just triggered, Aisha reported, turning her tablet to show Maya. Their share price has dropped 4% in the last hour. Trading volume is triple normal levels. Maya nodded, unsurprised. A billion-dollar partnership collapsing would naturally concern shareholders, especially given the unusual circumstances. Reuters is requesting comment, Kevin said, scrolling through messages. So are the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and CNBC. The business press is all over this. Maya's phone displayed an incoming call from airline headquarters, the 6th in the past 2 hours. She declined it again, having made her position clear. The ball was in their court until 5 p.m. By early afternoon, the situation had escalated, dramatically. A memo from airline management had leaked to staff, stating that Bradley Cooper and several colleagues had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The internal communication framed the situation as responding to a customer complaint, without acknowledging the discrimination aspects or the jeopardized partnership. Social media is exploding, Marcus reported during their hourly update meeting. The hashtag #FlyingWhileBlack has gone viral nationally. We're seeing thousands of travelers sharing similar experiences, not just with this airline but across the industry. You've inadvertently sparked a movement. Maya watched the social media feeds with mixed emotions. While the solidarity was powerful, the sheer volume of similar stories highlighted how common such experiences remained for travelers of color. Then came the inevitable backlash. A prominent conservative business commentator tweeted, "Maya Richardson threatens $950 airline deal over hurt feelings. This is why DEI is killing American business competitiveness." Another pundit on a cable business show questioned Maya's motives. Is this really about discrimination, or is Richardson playing the race card to negotiate better financial terms? Smart business tactic, but let's call it what it is. By mid-afternoon, Maya's assistant reported that her parents in Atlanta had received several threatening phone calls. Somehow, Richardson family contact information had been leaked online, with airport employee forums sharing angry messages about entitled passengers destroying careers. Even within Horizon, concerns began bubbling up. Several department heads requested an emergency meeting to discuss potential business impacts. "Some of our partners are getting nervous," explained David Chen, VP of Corporate Relationships. "Two major clients called asking if their upcoming trips will be affected. They're supportive in principle but concerned about practical disruptions." Maya addressed her team directly. "I understand the concerns, but we need to be clear about our priorities. If we compromise our fundamental values for financial convenience, what does that say about us as a company? What does it say about me as a leader?" At 3 p.m., William Armstrong called. Maya braced herself, knowing his board members would be pressuring him about the deal's uncertainty. "The board called an emergency meeting," he confirmed. "Several members are pushing for me to intervene. They're suggesting we proceed with the airline partnership and address these social issues separately later." "And what do you think?" Maya asked. "I think principles that bend under financial pressure aren't principles at all," Armstrong replied. "I've assured the board that we'll have resolution by end of day, one way or another." At 4:30 p.m., with 30 minutes remaining before Maya's deadline, Thomas Whitfield called personally. His tone had shifted from dismissive to conciliatory. "Maya, we've reviewed your proposal carefully," he began. "We can accept about 70% of the requirements immediately, with implementation plans for the remainder over 18 months. That's our best offer." Maya closed her eyes briefly. "That's not what I asked for, Thomas. The proposal needs to be accepted in its entirety." "Be reasonable," he urged. "You're asking for fundamental changes to how we operate. Changes of this magnitude take time." "Discrimination has taken enough time already," Maya replied. "My terms haven't changed. Full acceptance by 5 p.m. or we walk." As the deadline approached, her team gathered in the conference room, the tension palpable. At precisely 5:01 p.m., with no further communication from the airline, Maya stood to address them. "Contact our legal team," she instructed calmly. "Begin processing the cancellation of all planned bookings with the airline. Initiate conversations with their competitors immediately." The room fell silent as the magnitude of the decision sank in. $950 million walked away because of a principle. It wasn't just unusual in the business world. It was nearly unprecedented. "Are we sure about this?" someone asked softly. Maya nodded firmly. "Some values aren't negotiable. Dignity isn't negotiable. Respect isn't negotiable. And apparently, those values are worth exactly $950 million. As her team dispersed to execute her instructions, Maya stood alone by the window, watching the Chicago skyline. She wondered how many other black executives had swallowed similar indignities to preserve business relationships. How many had felt they had no choice but to smile through disrespect for the sake of shareholders and stakeholders. The system relied on that accommodation, on the pragmatic acceptance that change would come gradually, if at all. By refusing to play by those rules, Maya had changed the game entirely. Her phone buzzed with an incoming text from Dr. Washington. "Whatever happens next, you've already won the most important victory. Have you ever had to choose between your principles and practical benefits? What would you have done in Maya's position? Comment number 1 if you would have stood firm like Maya did, or number 2 if you think the compromise offer was reasonable. Hit that like button if you admire Maya's courage in walking away from nearly $1 billion to stand up for what's right. What do you think will happen next? Will the airline reconsider once they realize the financial impact, or will Maya's decision backfire on her company? Subscribe to find out in the next part of this incredible true story. Dawn broke over Chicago as Maya awoke to her buzzing phone. The screen displayed dozens of notifications, topped by a news alert that made her sit upright. Airline stock plummets, 18% following collapsed Horizon partnership. The financial fallout had been swift and severe. Overnight trading in Asian markets had punished the airline stock as news spread of the failed partnership. Wall Street analysts were already issuing downgrades, citing concerns about the company's ability to secure premium partnerships and questioning the leadership team's judgment. Maya's inbox contained messages from business publications worldwide requesting interviews. The story had transcended travel industry news to become a broader conversation about corporate accountability and racism in America's business culture. As Maya scanned the headlines over coffee, her phone rang with a call from Kevin. "You need to see this," he said urgently. Bradley Cooper gave an interview to a morning show defending himself. Maya switched on the television to see Bradley, the agent who had mocked her accent, presenting himself as a victim of cancel culture and political correctness gone mad. "I've been with the airline 20 years, Bradley insisted to the sympathetic interviewer. "One joke about someone's accent and suddenly I'm the face of racism in America? This is ridiculous." Before the interview concluded, however, social media had already responded. 3 different passengers came forward with videos of Bradley engaging in similar behavior toward other travelers of color over the past year. One particularly damaging clip showed him speaking normally to white customers before immediately adopting a mocking tone with an Indian family who approached his counter moments later. By mid-morning, the situation deteriorated further for the airline when an internal memo leaked to the press. The document, written by Richard Blackwell following yesterday's meeting, referred to Maya's anti-discrimination requirements as excessive demands from the diversity police and suggested waiting out the controversy rather than implementing meaningful changes. "The strategy should be minimal compliance until this blows over," the memo stated. "Most of these inclusivity demands are unenforceable anyway." The leak proved catastrophic to the airline's already crumbling public image. By noon, 3 civil rights organizations had announced boycotts of the airline, and the hashtag "Don't Fly Discrimination" was trending nationally. Maya received a call from Jasmine Taylor, the civil rights attorney. "We've been contacted by 27 former and current airline employees ready to testify about discriminatory practices," she reported. "This is bigger than your individual experience. We're looking at a potential class action with hundreds of affected individuals." The corporate fallout intensified throughout the day. 4 major corporations that had been silent on social justice issues announced they were reviewing their travel contracts with the airline. A prominent tech company immediately suspended their relationship pending changes in the airline's practices. By late afternoon, the airline board called an emergency meeting. Thomas Whitfield's leadership was being openly questioned by shareholders watching millions in value evaporate hourly. Maya observed the unfolding situation with mixed emotions. She hadn't wanted to destroy a company. She had simply wanted it to acknowledge and address systemic discrimination. The rapid escalation demonstrated just how ready the public was for accountability. "This isn't just about one company anymore," Marcus noted during their team meeting. "You've sparked an industry-wide conversation. 3 competing airlines have already announced comprehensive anti-discrimination initiatives in the past hours, trying to differentiate themselves from the controversy." Maya received messages from several aviation executives who had previously dismissed diversity concerns. Now they were quietly reaching out, admitting the problems, and asking for guidance on making meaningful changes. Sometimes systems don't change until the cost of maintaining the status quo exceeds the cost of transformation, Dr. Washington told Maya during their daily call. "You've just adjusted that equation for an entire industry." By evening, William, Armstrong had called to inform Maya that another airline CEO had personally contacted him, eager to negotiate a partnership incorporating all of Maya's original requirements. "They're viewing this as a market opportunity," Armstrong explained. "3 different carriers want to be known as the airline that got it right where their competitor failed." As Maya prepared for a meeting with prominent civil rights leaders to discuss developing industry-wide standards, her assistant notified her of another surprising development. "The White House called," she said. "The Transportation Secretary wants to meet with you next week to discuss discrimination in the transportation sector. They're considering new regulatory guidelines." Maya looked out at the Chicago skyline, thinking about how one moment of standing firm against discrimination had catalyzed a movement far beyond what she could have anticipated. The airline's resistance had revealed the depth of the problem, and its consequences were becoming a case study in how quickly consumer sentiment could shift around issues of equality and respect. What had begun as a humiliating experience at an airport counter was now reshaping how an entire industry approached diversity and inclusion. The power of economic leverage, when applied principally, was proving more effective than decades of pleading for incremental change. Airline board removes CEO Thomas Whitfield amid discrimination scandal. The headline flashed across Maya's phone screen exactly 2 weeks after the incident at Atlanta International Airport. She was back home in her Atlanta office reviewing proposals from competing airlines, all eager to partner with Horizon on terms that included comprehensive anti-discrimination commitments. The airline's board had moved decisively after shareholders lost nearly 30% of their investment value in just 10 days. Thomas Whitfield's dismissal was just the beginning. Richard Blackwell had resigned following the memo leak, and Bradley Cooper had been terminated along with 7 other employees identified in the investigation. Most surprising was the announcement of Whitfield's replacement, Vanessa Rodriguez, a respected aviation executive who would become the first Black woman to lead a major North American airline. Rodriguez had built her reputation turning around, struggling airlines with a focus on culture change and customer experience. Maya's assistant interrupted her thoughts. "Vanessa Rodriguez is on line 1 for you." Taking a deep breath, Maya accepted the call. "This is Maya Richardson." "Ms. Richardson, this is Vanessa Rodriguez," came the confident voice. "I believe we have some important matters to discuss regarding the future relationship between our companies." "Congratulations on your appointment," Maya replied professionally. "I imagine you're facing significant challenges in your new role." "Challenges I welcome," Rodriguez stated firmly. "I've reviewed your proposal extensively. Every single requirement you outlined is not only reasonable, but necessary for any modern airline committed to serving all passengers with dignity. I'd like to meet in person to restart our negotiations." 3 days later, Maya sat across from Rodriguez and her newly restructured executive team in their corporate headquarters. The demographic makeup had already shifted noticeably, with 3 people of color and 4 women now represented in the leadership group. "We're not just accepting your original proposal," Rodriguez explained, sliding a document across the table. "We're expanding on it. We've added stronger accountability measures, more comprehensive training, and direct compensation ties to diversity metrics for all executives. We want to transform this crisis into an opportunity to lead the industry." Maya reviewed the document carefully. "This is impressive, but implementation will be the true test, which is why we'd like you to chair our newly formed Customer Dignity Council," Rodriguez proposed. "Complete oversight authority and direct reporting to the board. We need your expertise to get this right." Over the following weeks, Maya worked closely with the airline to develop comprehensive anti-discrimination protocols. Every customer-facing employee underwent intensive training, developed in partnership with civil rights organizations. Employment practices were overhauled to address advancement barriers for minorities. Most importantly, a zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory behavior was instituted with clear consequences. The media narrative shifted from scandal to transformation, as the airline publicly committed to the changes. Horizon and the airline announced a new partnership exceeding the original $950 million deal, with added provisions making it contingent on meeting specific inclusion benchmarks. Competing airlines, watching the situation unfold, implemented similar changes to avoid losing market share. Industry publications that had initially criticized Maya's extreme reaction now hailed her as a visionary who had identified a market inefficiency, the massive unmet demand for dignified treatment among travelers of color. Maya's strategic stand had created a certification opportunity as well. Horizon established the Travel Dignity Index, rating companies on their inclusivity practices. Major corporations began requiring minimum ratings from this index before establishing corporate travel accounts, creating a powerful financial incentive for genuine change. Business schools requested case studies on the incident, analyzing how principled decision-making had created both moral and market advantages. Maya found herself addressing students at Harvard Business School, explaining how values-based leadership could transform industries. Her testimony before a congressional committee on transportation discrimination led to proposed regulatory changes that would require airlines to track and report on the demographic patterns in their customer complaints and resolutions. The executives who had initially dismissed Maya's concerns as overreaction now praised her insight. Investment analysts who had criticized her emotional decision to walk away from nearly $1 billion now lauded her strategic acumen in identifying a competitive advantage through inclusive practices. 6 months after the incident, Maya received data confirming the impact of the changes. Customer satisfaction scores among minority travelers had increased dramatically for partner airlines implementing the new standards. Employee retention had improved as well, particularly among diverse staff who reported feeling more supported in addressing problematic customer interactions. Perhaps most satisfying was the email Maya received from a young flight attendant. "Before your stand, I was ready to leave the industry because of how often I witnessed discrimination that I felt powerless to address. Now I have protocols, support, and the authority to ensure every passenger is treated with dignity. You've changed the daily reality for thousands of us in this industry." Maya reflected on the unexpected magnitude of the impact as she prepared for yet another speaking engagement. What had begun as a personal humiliation had catalyzed an industry-wide reckoning that was creating measurable improvements in the experiences of millions of travelers. The transformation wasn't perfect, change never is, but the trajectory was undeniable. By refusing to accept discrimination as an inevitable cost of doing business, Maya had proven that moral leadership and business success could be powerfully aligned. 1 year to the day after Bradley Cooper mocked her accent at the Atlanta International Airport check-in counter, Maya Richardson stood on stage at the Global Travel Industry Awards, accepting the prestigious Industry Leadership Award. The glittering ballroom filled with applause as Maya approached the microphone, the golden statue gleaming in her hands. "A year ago today, I was faced with a choice that many of us encounter in different forms," Maya began. "Accept discrimination as the cost of doing business, or stand firm in the belief that dignity is a non-negotiable right. The journey since then has reminded me that transformation is possible when we refuse to separate our values from our business decisions." The airline that had once been at the center of controversy was now reporting unprecedented improvements. Under Vanessa Rodriguez's leadership, customer satisfaction scores had risen across all demographic groups. Employee retention had improved by 23%, with particular gains among staff of color who reported feeling empowered rather than compromised by company policies. Most telling was the data on discrimination complaints, which had fallen by 78%. The few incidents that did occur were now addressed immediately through clearly defined protocols, rather than dismissed or buried in bureaucracy. Bradley Cooper, who had briefly become the face of travel industry discrimination, had struggled to find employment in the field after his termination. 6 months after the incident, he gave a surprisingly reflective interview to a travel industry publication. "I never thought of myself as racist," he admitted. "But looking back at that video and others, I can't deny the pattern. The culture made it easy to dismiss certain travelers without consequences. I'm not proud of who I was in those interactions." Maya's business had flourished beyond all projections. Horizon Cultural Tours had doubled in size, now valued at $1.8 billion. The company had expanded into new markets across Asia and Africa, always maintaining its commitment to culturally respectful travel experiences. The Atlanta International Airport, where the incident occurred, had undergone its own transformation. The terminal now featured a customer service training center named after Maya, where airport staff from across the country came to learn best practices for inclusive customer interaction. On a personal level, Maya found particular satisfaction in a special trip she arranged for her father. 72-year-old Dr. Richardson received VIP treatment on the very airline that had once been the site of such disrespect, with Vanessa Rodriguez herself greeting him at the gate. "The real victory isn't in changed policies," Maya told the awards audience. "It's in changed experiences. It's in the young black professional who no longer braces herself for humiliation when approaching a check-in counter. It's in the employee who feels empowered to intervene when witnessing discrimination rather than staying silent to protect their job." Industry surveys confirmed the shift. Black travelers reported a 29% improvement in their overall travel experiences across all major airlines, with discriminatory incidents dropping to their lowest recorded levels. Maya had unintentionally created a new generation of business leaders as well. Young entrepreneurs of color frequently cited her stance as inspiration for refusing to compromise their values for financial gain. The Maya Richardson principle had entered the business lexicon, referring to situations where standing firm on inclusion ultimately created greater market value than compromise would have. To cement this legacy, Maya established the Richardson Foundation, providing scholarships for young people of color entering the travel and hospitality industry. The foundation's motto, "Dignity is non-negotiable," had become a rallying cry for a new approach to business ethics. On the final day of the conference, Maya found herself at the same airline check-in counter where the incident had occurred a year earlier. The staffing had completely changed, with a diverse team of agents who immediately recognized her. The manager, a young black woman, approached with a warm smile. "Ms. Richardson, we're honored to serve you today," she said professionally. "Your flight is confirmed in first class. Is there anything else you need before your trip to Jamaica?" As Maya boarded the plane bound for her parents' homeland, she reflected on the unexpected journey of the past year. The transformation hadn't come from canceling one employee who made a mistake. It had come from challenging an entire system that permitted such behavior to flourish without consequences. Her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Washington. "Remember, when you worried you were overreacting? Sometimes it takes one person refusing to accept what everyone else has normalized to create real change." Maya smiled as the plane took off, carrying her back to the island where her story began. Thus, journey had come full circle, but the transformation she had sparked would continue long after this flight landed. This powerful story illustrates how individual courage can transform entire systems. Maya's refusal to accept discrimination as a normal cost of doing business revealed that principles and profits aren't mutually exclusive. By standing firm against racism, she created a ripple effect throughout an industry that had normalized discriminatory behavior for decades. Maya demonstrated that economic leverage, when applied with conviction, can accelerate social change more effectively than appeals to goodwill alone. Her experience shows that organizations often change only when maintaining discriminatory practices becomes more expensive than addressing them. Most importantly, Maya's journey reminds us that dignity is non-negotiable, and that true leadership means aligning our business decisions with our deepest values, even when it requires walking away from short-term gains to achieve lasting transformation. Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination while traveling? What did you do in that moment? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments section below. If Maya's courage in standing up against racism inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of transformation and justice. Share this video with someone who needs to understand that their dignity should never be compromised, even in small daily interactions. Remember, change happens when we refuse to accept discrimination as normal. Thank you for watching, and may you always have the courage to stand firm in your values, just like Maya Richardson did.